Hey everyone, it's Peter from Daydream Nation, and I've got Reed Little from the Contrarians back to the channel. How's it going, Reed?
Going great, Peter. Thank you for the invite as always. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We are going to do an album dive on Whitesnake and the album Saints and Sinners. Now, surprisingly, I've never spoken about this album on the Daydream Nation channel. So I thought it was long overdue to look at the album, do a deep dive, talk songs, performances, all things Whitesnake. So, Reed, my usual question is, what was your encounter with this album in the day, if any?
All right. So in the day, absolutely not. I did not hear this album until 2012. And kind of an interesting sequence of events. I was mostly familiar, as many American hard rock fans were, mostly familiar with Whitesnake from Slide It In onwards, and not as much their early albums. And they had come out with Forevermore. And for some reason, they played a festival in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I don't even think they were on tour, but they played this little local festival. And it was I was just standing there in front of the stage while David Coverdale was up being lewd. And it was such a great band. And I went, I need to go check out their older albums. So I got as many of their older albums as I could get. And I love Saints and Sinners. It's my favorite of the pre John Sykes era Coverdale albums. I'm hoping that I haven't said other albums in other shows. You never know. Tastes change, but I love this album.
Excellent. Well, I got this album pretty well in the day. I think I might have picked it up in 1983. So there's the back cover. I think that's a really iconic photograph. I think that's probably my favorite David Coverdale photo of all time. And I was just looking, there's the inner sleeve, and you've got the lyric sheet with that iconic sort of monument. And also included in the album, which I happen to have, is the old Whitesnake tour T-shirt and mementos. So, folks, if you're ever getting a secondhand record, it's always a queue where they have original sort of inserts in this. So the program, £2, patch £1, and the button badge 50p. So there you go. So a little bit of trivia, but nicely presented album. And my first impression in the day was, this is heavy. This is harder. It's definitely a different sound to the stylings of Come and Get It and Ready and Willing. I've always said Come and Get It is my favorite Whitesnake album of all time, but I always thought this was a little bit more, the sound was a bit more garagey, not smooth, and it was definitely a much heavier sound. So I think let's look at the songs, and that'll be a way to navigate our way of what our feelings are for the album with 2026 ears. Right. So, Reed, you put on the record, first track on is Young Blood. What do you think of this song?
So I love Young Blood. I think it's a great opening. And as always, I have to say, because of the age in which we live in, I got the reissue, right, that was released in 2007. So I don't know how it sounds compared to the original album. I have no way of knowing that. I only have the album that I have. But I really like the sonics on this album. I know that there was a lot of turmoil in the recording of it. They started off with Martin Birch was not available, and they had another guy producing it. And then later Martin Birch was available, and he came in and finished it. And the other guy is credited as the engineer. Gilbreth, I think is his name. But I think it's a very good sounding album, but it has some peculiarities that you notice right off the bat. So I'm going to say that this album actually has 3 styles of songs on it. You've got honky tonk, you've got classic Whitesnake, and you've got 80s Whitesnake. So to me, this song is honky tonk. It's very straightforward. It's very four on the floor. There's no swing to it. It really sounds like an upscale bar band, like an unusually talented bar band. But it's high energy, and I love the bass on this song. Neil Murray is killing it with the bass line on this song. On the flip side, the guitar part is relatively primitive, considering the firepower that Marsden and Moody had as guitar players. The drums are really just, I feel like Ian Pace is kind of phoning it in. They're not very impressive drums, and the keyboard is almost non-existent. So it's an interesting mix. You hear a lot of bass, you hear a lot of David Coverdale's voice, but I think it really suits that. I mean, people call it pub rock or garage rock. Those aren't really terms that I vibe with, but to me, it's just honky tonk.
I think the production's a bit garagey. It's not a smooth production. It's not top-notch Martin Birch. Interesting you say about the drums. There was Ian Pace in many interviews has said that he was at a point that he didn't know how to play a lot of these songs. He didn't know what approach. I don't think David was happy with Ian Pace, and they had some conversations, and it was probably subsequent after the laying of the tracks and Ian left the band. But, you listen to Ready and Willing, you listen to Come and Get It, and you have this wonderful metronomic Ian Pace, a simpler Ian Pace to You Fool No One and The Burn and Come Taste the Band, but he's still got that groove and swing. A lot of the drumming on this album is four on the floor, and it's a little bit more direct and straightforward, and it's not what you would expect Ian Pace. So I don't think this is one of his greatest drumming, but I think that's probably in him. He was simply not in the zone for this album. This is a rambunctious opening track. It's something that I think is in the wheelhouse of Status Quo, which is not a bad thing. It's a little bit of boogie. And I can actually hear keyboard. It's subtle, but you hear the chords come in, when you've got a Burning with a Hot Fever and you hear the keyboard come in. He just puts these little chords. It's subtle. And I agree with Neil Murray. The bass is right up in the mix, and it's wonderful. So I think it's a cracker opening track. I've always liked it. I don't think he's played it live much, and that's probably, if Whitesnake ever did a deep cut dive, I would have loved to have heard this song played. Rough and Ready. This was played live, and if you see the Commandos' Castle Donington performance, I think in 1984, this is definitely one of the songs they play. This is a co-write between Coverdale and Moody. What do you think of this song?
So this then falls, again, three categories of songs. So this is the second category, which is classic Whitesnake. You can just look at the title, Rough and Ready. It's exactly Come and Get It or Ready and Willing. It's the same style of music. And what we get for that is a much more prominent guitar riff. So I would say Youngblood, the guitar, not really the main instrument, but in this you get a real strong guitar riff. And you get a slide guitar solo, I presume, again, because it's a Mick Moody right that he got the the choice of playing on the solo.
Yep, he's doing the solo, checking it.
Once again, this is another song where, I mean, I don't want to say there are no keyboards, but they are not prominent. They're not featured. The guitar and the vocals are really the most prominent things in this song. Yeah. But I think this is an example of Whitesnake doing what Whitesnake does well, but it's not groundbreaking.
Well, lyrically, it's not groundbreaking. It's definitely not Shakespeare, because I aim to shoot my pistol and fire like a Catlin gun. Hello, Gene Simmons. But lyrics aside, I love the bluesy riff. There's a real deep, gnarly, dirty bluesy riff at the core of this song, and that sells it for me. I forgive the lyrics. and you have to with a lot of Whitesnake in this era, don't you, Reed? Especially the next album that's going to pop up. But I think it's the riff that sells it for me. And Mickey Moody's, waving the flag of blues. They weren't a happy campers on this album. They were tired. There was a lot of disgruntlement about, we're selling out all these venues around Europe and UK, and where's the money? Bit of a common theme with a lot of Deep Purple offshoot bands. And it got to the point that David had to terminate the arrangement with the manager, John Coletta, and buy out the contract. And there was one point where he actually fired the whole band, and then they came back in. But there's been a lot of observations that David said that Moody and Marsden didn't seem to, they weren't into it, and would have rather played darts at the local pub than lay down tracks. So whatever was happening in the studio, I still think there's a lot of merit in this album. And this track is, it's the blues, dirty blues riff that I really groove on.
Well, we'll come back to the idea that most of the band is a little checked out as we get through some of the songs. There's one song that I think is kind of the antithesis of that, but it'll take us a while to get to it.
Bloody Luxury. I think this is Boogie Woogie. It's a Coverdale sort of self-pen one. What do you think of this particular song?
So we're back to straight up honky tonk. And again, what we get for that is piano. Now this one, John Lord gets a much more prominent part, but rather than that big heavy Hammond, he's playing honky tonk piano. And that means that the guitars are there, but they're not playing a strong riff. They're just chording and kind of playing a blues jam. And you really get David Coverdale is this song. It's just a 12-bar blues with a honky-tonk piano. But Coverdale is so good at this style of music. Even if, as a lyricist, I'm going to point out a specific lyric, which I think is particularly funny on another song. But he was no great shakes as a lyricist, but man, he could sing. And he can really just sell this material.
He was capable of great lyrics. I mean, I've always said Walking in the Shadow of the Blues, where he kept it simple, he was on point and telling a story, he was capable of pulling out a good lyric. But, on the body of most of his stuff, it was just, below the garter belt type of material, wasn't it, Reed?
Right. Yes. Well, there's a reason he called his band Whitesnake.
Yes. Another Status Quo track, I think, this Bloody Luxury. Just imagine Status Quo doing the 12-bar boogie, adding a little bit of tinkly piano, and David Coverdale on vocals. Voila, you've got the... I'm hearing a lot of Status Quo in this album. So, are you familiar with Status Quo?
Very, very vaguely. Status Quo were never huge in the United States. Certainly not to the extent that they were in England and Europe. But I have some Status Quo albums. I don't listen to them very often.
Yeah. All right. Victim of Love. What do you think of this song? Another Coverdale self-penned song.
Yes. So, sounds exactly like it could have been on Ready and Willin'. It's the old style Whitesnake song. I have to say that again, when you're playing the old style song, you get more guitar. This one has a great guitar solo. I'm sure it's Marsden. It's not flashy, but it has some really great note choices.
It's Mickey Moody.
Is it Moody?
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Then.
I'm looking at the... that's the wonderful thing about the lyric sheet, because it tells you the solo, and it says Mick Moody.
Well, Mick, I should give you more credit. Sorry about that. It's not a flashy solo, but it's got some really tasteful playing and some great note choices. And I think the guitar players were much happier with this classic style of rock than they were with the status quo style of rock.
I think Coverdale was starting to flog the guitarist into a more arena American rock style, because like the previous albums are much more subtle They had that blues infusion in respect of the riffage, in respect of the tone. But this album, it's definitely more rambunctious. It's a bit more out there. It's a bit more noisy. And I think Coverdale's got the lemon and he's squeezing it and he's trying to push these players into something that's more arena, which isn't probably fully realized until Slide It In. But I think it's starting to happen. You can't, this is definitely sonically a much heavier album than the previous. Crying in the Rain. Now, I'm just going to hijack this for a moment and say that I like both versions. We're going to inevitably talk about the 87 versus this version. I love this version, and I also love 87 version. I'll throw it over to you, and then I'll come in.
So this is the first of what I'm calling the 80s Whitesnake songs. And of course, I did first hear the version on 1987. So I was curious because I knew that was a redo of a previous track. So I was very curious to listen to this one. And what really surprised me is that there are far fewer differences than you would expect. John Sykes plays the guitar lines from this song almost note for note. Now, what you get different is it's got a lot more distortion. You've got that wide Eventide harmonizer, so he's eating up tons and tons of sonic space. There's tons of reverb. So the sonics of it are very, very different, but the notes are almost identical. Coverdale's singing is very different. It's not as heavy on this version, even though this was heavy for Whitesnake. It wasn't 80s heavy metal heavy in the way that the 1987 version would be. But I like the fact that you can hear all the instruments. When you get to the self-titled album, Sykes takes up so much space that you can't hear anybody else. It's just vocals and guitar. And on this song, you can hear the drums, you can hear the bass, you can hear the keyboards. The keyboards aren't doing a lot of playing. John Lord was not doing a lot of really flashy playing on most of this album. He's kind of in the background. He's supplying those pads. But it's still a great song. So, yeah, I like both versions of it.
I think this is probably the best song on the album. And the difference is this is blues and 87 is metal. You know how you were saying the sonics were taken up by Sykes and Coverdale? I'd add one more thing. Ainsley Dunbar plays his ass off. And that's some of the heaviest drumming. You know how they put Whitesnake in hair metal? That drumming on that particular song is not hair metal. It's much more metallic, but that's for another show. Back to this song on this album, I love the atmospherics. When it's sort of slows down and you can hear Lordy doing these really, I reckon his keyboards for most part are very subtle. So a lot of keyboard padding. There's this underlying menace. Neil Murray does, just a simple bass line. And it's like Bernie Marsden. He's time to shine. So this is a very atmospheric blues song. It's got a lot of drama. And it's very different to 87, which is just more, it's flash. Crying in the Rain was the first track off 1987. So yes. There you go. Pow. I mean, listening to that song for the very first time and being used to the bluesy Whitesnake was definitely a shock. But, look, I love this version, Crying in the Rain, and I think it's a mighty fine way to finish, side one of the album. All right. Then we flip over the album and we go to Here I Go Again. Again, another one. Where there have been two versions. Over to you, Reed. What do you think of this version?
So I'm going to step out a little bit on this one because I don't like this song that much. I think it's trite. I think both versions of it are not particularly good. It constantly shocks me that this song in the 1987 version went to #1 in the U.S. It's not that good a song.
Oh, don't begrudge him.
The
Come on.
1982 version
Mm.
couldn't even chart in America, but the 1987 version went to number one. So, and oh, let me just say this too. I'm always shocked this album came out in 1982. It is so out of step with hard rock in 1982. For one thing, hard rock was dying, heavy metal was taking over. Um, name another blues rock act from 1982 that was doing good business. I mean, Bryan Adams was probably the best selling like rock act out there, and he's way down the hardness scale from something like Whitesnake. So this album is such a throwback. It feels like 1977 or 1978. And this song sounds exactly like Love Ain't No Stranger off of Slide It In. So this was a song that David Coverdale absorbed the pieces of and moved it forward with the band, which I find kind of fascinating. Again, it doesn't do it for me. I know a lot of people clearly love this song. I'm like, it's okay. It's all right.
Oh, you Grinch. I love this song. I mean, this is like David Coverdale's My Way, New York, New York. It's his signature song, mate. Look, anyway, you're a true contrarian. That's why we have you on the channel. I don't like this version. As within Cooee, that's an Australian word for within the Grand Canyon of the version on 87. 87's version is like a punchy anthem power ballad. So John Colander was very astute looking at the back catalogue of Whitesnake, and he identified that song. If we redo this, this will be a hit. So he had the knowledge and the foresight to pick out this song, because I think the song itself is a very good one, but the way it was done in 82, this one is drenched in, the organ, the church organ sound of John Lord, and it's very slow, and it's a little bit hymn-like. And I agree with you, very out of step with 1982. I don't know. It doesn't have enough punch. It doesn't have enough spark that 87 did pick up on. So Colander heard that song, and he sort of think, okay, we can arrange this song and make it punchy. And whatever he did, he the suggestion with Coverdale in 1987, it was just a pot of gold. So really sort of punched out the chorus, made the verse even more compelling, and the rest is history. But I just think it's a little bit churchy, a little bit hymn-like.
I think it's like a wedding march at the beginning when it's just the organ and David Coverdale singing. It almost sounds like a wedding march, which I've read that this song was inspired by one of David's divorces. So maybe that was intentional.
Yeah, well, here I go again. There you go. But it wasn't that big a hit in the UK either. Only hit number 34. So a lot of people say it was a hit for the second time around. It was a modest chart placing single, but it wasn't like an uber success. But look, this is the one. This is the song that keeps on printing money, because if you every time I see a movie that's set in the 80s, or there's some sort of inspirational story, rags to riches, it's always played. Christian Bale in The Fighter, the finale, Here I Go Again. Cobra Kai, Here I Go Again. Television commercials, Here I Go Again. So, cha-ching, it prints money, doesn't it, Reed?
It really does. And, I'm always, well, of course, he's passed now, but I'm always glad to see, Bernie Marsden get a paycheck.
Yeah. And according to a lot of interviews, it was a fairly decent paycheck. I think he was one of the more happier ex-members of Whitesnake, and he did make amends with David Coverdale, and they had a kind of a warm relationship towards the end of his life, so that was good to see. Yeah. Anyway, Love and Affection, Sean Off goes a long, long way. How does this song land for you? Another Coverdale moody song.
So this gets back into the classic Whitesnake. anytime you've got something and with no D, something else, you're talking the classic Whitesnake sound. And this is the song, every time he says, "You were born to suck seed," it just cracks me up. I mean, that's David Coverdale in a nutshell right there. But it's got a nice prominent guitar line again. Once again, we get very straightforward drumming. I mean, Ian Pace he is not doing much other than just four on the floor, keeping time. The keyboards are way back in the mix. It is interesting. We get a keyboard solo on this one instead of a guitar solo. And the way David does it, he's like, and now I can't remember exactly what the transition it says, Mr. Lord or something. Anyway, it's you can imagine like the barroom singer introducing the solo, and then John Lord does a keyboard solo. It's probably his best part on the album. Certainly the most attention getting part on the album. So It's a good song. Again, Whitesnake had already done this type of material for functionally 3 albums. They were very well polished at it. They knew how to do it, but it may have been just wearing a little bit old for some members of the band.
It's a little bit filler. I like the riff. There's a little bit of a bluesy riff that sort of hooks you in. But at the end of the day, when, you know, the other side of when the song finishes, it's a little bit lightweight. It's a little bit filler. Interesting you say about Pace, straightforward. I think I've got this theory that you can actually hear if musicians that are laying tracks on an album are happy or not. It comes out in their playing. Like you could always tell when Richie Blackers was not happy in an album, he'd just do the bare minimal, you know?
Right.
He'd chime in. On this album, you can tell Pacey's not happy because he's not doing any of his little frills, is he? He's not doing anything out of the ordinary, out of the box. It's just keeping time and just doing the minimum. So, but I think it's to the detriment of this album, the drumming. There we go. We're talking about drumming again, and you don't take much notice of drumming, notoriously, do you?
Yeah, I mean, he's got the job done, but it's not very interesting for most of the album.
Very unlike Ian Pace. Very unlike. Rock and Roll Angels. What do you think of this one?
So, dig this song. It's kind of interesting because if you were to lay out the elements, on paper of the different styles of music between the honky tonk, the classic Whitesnake, and the 80s Whitesnake, the honky tonk would be the ones that are least what I enjoy. But actually, I really like the honky tonk songs on this. And I think it's because Coverdale is probably into those more than anyone else. The guitars, again, very basic. I love the vocals, and there are multiple layers of vocals on this. And I'm sure some of it is David double-tracked. Some of it is Mickey Moody singing background. But there's a lot of vocal, well, on the whole album, obviously, but on this song in particular, there are so many overdubs. And this almost a cappella version where they're going rock and roll angels. I think it sounds, even though it's structurally speaking, there's just not much happening in this song. David is such a good vocalist that I think he carries it.
Yeah, you probably like this song a little bit more than me. I still think this is on the verge of filler. It's honky tonk. It's in the wheelhouse of a little bit of status quo. You know what I would have loved? I would have loved if he did something that was a little bit slower, a bit more bluesy, and bring Moody and Marsden to the fore. Maybe even do it acoustic, slide it, slide guitar. But no, this whole album is very, let's ramp it up, let's make it garagey, let's make it a little bit noisy. We're heading down the path towards arena rock. So no, I don't think this is a very strong song. It's a little bit filler. Dancing Girls. You don't need a doctor, don't need a priest. What do you think about this one?
So this time we're going to get a more interesting song. And actually, Spoiler, I think the last two tracks on this album are the most interesting songs. So for the first time, we get something different from the band. This song is almost a funk. It's too straightforward to be a funk, but it's in that same kind of vein. So this is really more of a Deep Purple Stormbringer style of track. And you get a lot of keyboard and bass. The guitars are not very prominent. I mean, this time the vocals, nothing to write home about, but at least it's up tempo, it's energetic, and it has a very different feel to the rest of the album. And I think that the soloing is really interesting because I think that what you hear is the guitar doubled by the keyboard, and then the guitar drops out and it's just keyboard. So that's a different kind of structure for Whitesnake, and it gives it some sonic interest.
I think he's really, you know how I was saying, is squeezing the lemon and making it really rock. You can hear he's inhaling on the microphone. And you can tell when David's invested in a song where he does the heavy breathing. You know, like there was like a signature for the Come and Get It and Ready and Willing, that he does these little outros where he's heavy breathing. He's going, you know, or does a little throwaway line. And on this one, he's going, ooh, you know, he's really getting into it. It's like he's in playing with the band in the studio, and he's going, come on, lads. You know, he's trying to wake them up. He's trying to get them energized. They're probably half cut from the pub or whatever, but he's trying to squeeze something out of this. So I give it an A for effort. I think this is a little bit of a bounce back. I like this song. It's bluesy. And you know how you're saying about Lord? I reckon he's playing a lot of bass keyboards. He's like replicating Neil Murray or doing something complementary. So Neil Murray's playing here and Lordy's playing down there. So playing these little bass lines, which is quite interesting. So Dancing Girls, I like this. Another song that, to my knowledge, that they never played live. This would have been an interesting one, wouldn't it, Reed?
It would have been interesting. And you can see, I mean, it's funny. When I think of Coverdale live, I just think of him waving his crotch in front of the front row and making comments to all the women. And this is definitely a song that he could have done that with. So I don't know why he wouldn't have played it live.
Now, the finale, Saints and Sinners, I think this one is a very interesting finale to the album. I'll reserve my comments. I'll go over to you. What do you think of this song?
So I love this song. I think it's a fantastic closer. I think more than any other track on the album, you can hear everybody engaged. It's got a great riff. Dun, 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 dun. I also noticed it's the only song that has a group writing credit. Everybody gets credit on this song. And I wonder if, one, that might have been David throwing him a bone to try and get people invested, but it shows that everybody was really more engaged on this song. And I also wonder if this album, maybe in order to fit in with the rest of the catalog, they were probably going to call it either Rough and Ready or Love and Affection, because those are the songs that match the old name schemes. And instead, they end up calling it Saints and Sinners after this song. So again, I kind of think, well, is David throwing him a bone because everybody's got a writing credit on this, and then he's naming the album after this song? But of course, as we know, the band didn't survive this album anyway, and he was getting in entirely new musicians. I will say it's repetitious, but for most of the length of the song, it feels like a good jam. Like the musicians are really into it. Like, okay, you take it. All right, you take it for 12 bars. All right, now you take it. And until you get to the back end of the song, I'm still invested. I do think it goes a little bit too long. They could probably cut a couple of choruses off of it. But I think it's a great song and it's a great album closer.
I think it's a great album closer. And to me, it's like To the Day I Die, which I think is one of the all-time great Whitesnake album closers off Come and Get It. I love the bit at the end when Lordy's organ comes in and he does this big chord, and it just adds so much gravity to the song. Looking at the lyrics, it's all Coverdale's lyrics, of course. I think he's having a pot shot at the manager. He's having a pot shot of everything that's been happening in Whitesnake with the legalities and where they are. And I think he's being unapologetic. Here I am. We're not saints. Just take us for what we are. So I think it's a little bit of self-observation too. So I think it's a great finale. But again, another song that, to my knowledge, never got played live, which
and
is
it wasn't released single.
Yeah, and quite interesting for a title song of an album. So there you have it. This barely got a release in the US. I've had an ongoing conversation with Tim Derling, and he's of the opinion that it didn't get a release at all in some parts of America at any stage. I'm pretty sure it did get a release when 87 came out. There were a lot of the back catalogue where they're saying, if you've heard this album, come back and listen to some of the early 80s albums or the late 70s, which is completely, it's like, night and day, isn't it? Like comparing albums like Love Hunter and Trouble to 1987.
Right. I mean, I always have to caveat, because I grew up in such a small town, and we didn't have access to rock radio. I'm a bad source for contemporary music through the early 80s until MTV came out. But certainly Slide It In was the first Whitesnake album that anybody I knew owned. And at the time, people were like, listen to this new band, Whitesnake. No one was talking about Saints and Sinners or Ready and Willing or the old albums. So I thought that they hadn't been released in the US for years, but apparently they had, and they just weren't that well received.
Absolutely. All right. Well, as I put up the picture disc, there's the picture disc for Whitesnake. What is your opinion of this album and where it fits in the Whitesnake discography?
Well, I love it. Parts of it are very simple for Whitesnake. Parts of it are very standard for Whitesnake, but parts of it are very forward-looking. And I think this is a rare example of an album that's actually better than the sum of its parts. Sometimes by the time an album's over, I'm kind of a little ready to move on to something else. But this album I find energizing. I listen to it, I enjoy it, and I'm ready to hit play on it again. Of all of the Marsden Moody era albums, it's still my favorite of them.
I think this is middle ranking Whitesnake for me. I think there are a few albums that I enjoy a lot more, but it's very worthy. There's a lot of great work on it, and it's another example of an album where perhaps there was a lot of shenanigans going on. A lot of people may not have been invested. There was a lot of drama, but some decent art came out of it. So it's an ongoing thing. I always seem to scratch my head where albums that I really enjoy and I hear the playing and it seems, they're on point, and you read stories that there was so much turmoil happening.
Yeah, and again, it's much easier to look back at it now and say, oh, it's a great album, because in 1982, at least in the US, there was no space for this type of music. So they were really going to face, I know that they keep saying they were trying to break America. They were trying to break in America, and they couldn't get that traction. And they weren't going to with this style of music. It didn't have an audience. So as much as I love Bernie Marsden and to a lesser extent Mick Moody, but Whitesnake was never going to become a platinum selling band in the States making 1970s blues rock.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you, Reed. As always, you've got some very astute commentary on this album. We love having you on the show. You can see Reed Little on the Contrarians. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. We love reading your comments, good, bad, or indifferent. ongoing series of the Deep Purple family. More shows to come in 2026 and beyond. Once again, thank you, Reed, and all the best. And cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, Peter.